push this. Here we go. We're going to talk about where you're located. Terrell happens to be located where they had evacuation orders for the summer fires that were going on. Pretty scary. And she's going to talk a little bit about that. But yeah, she lives near Mount Hood, Oregon, and which is an absolutely beautiful. My husband and I were talking because I was saying how I don't think there was ever a time that I drove home from Mount Hood where I didn't look out at that Columbia Gorge and just go, this is the most beautiful place on earth. It's so beautiful. It's
never gets old, never gets old. It
never gets old. No. And it's sad though, because it kind of ruins, like when we were in Italy, you know, people are looking outside the window of the tour bus. And I was like, nah, it's all right. Have you been to the gorge? You know, you get a little.
You go to the Grand Canyon and go, yeah.
Yeah. I know Oregon ruins it for sightseeing. But anyway, Terrell, thank you so much. I want to start out by you telling your story of how you went from an active, actual physical therapist. You were helping other people get back from where they were to depending on a wheelchair yourself. So start us out on your journey.
You know, I grew up in an amazing home. There was 4 biological kids, and then we had a bunch of bonus kids. We had 5 bonus kids, and then my parents took in foster kids. And I mean, there was always room for one more in our house. And I was involved in sports. I was playing baseball before girls were allowed to play baseball. So kicked out of that one, got moved over to when they started girls softball. It was amazing. Started volleyball in high school, was a walk-on, went to junior Olympics in volleyball and in track, and doing the javelin in track and the shot put in track, which I was 5'2" and 100 pounds of nothing, but I loved it. It was free. It was something I loved. Went to college. That's really where I got a chance to do the bigger community service. Community service has always been close to me, special needs kids. Our grade school had the first kids with disabilities in the Portland schools. It was an experimental program. And they had the deaf kids in, we were in a portable, and the building room next to us was the deaf kids, and they became my best friends. That was just all I wanted to hang out with, because I did have a bonus sister who was deaf, but she was in a private school. But I got to know these kids, and it really drove something in me of that's what I wanted to work with. That's where I wanted to be. Went to college thinking I was going to be a medical missionary, go overseas. I wanted to travel because my mom's retired from the airlines. I have the travel bug in me. I wanted to travel, but when I was in college, we went to different places in the United States to help with mission trips. And I knew my calling was not overseas. And in some ways it broke my heart, because that was my desire rather than my calling. But once we got to do more, I left college, I went to Kentucky, worked with kids with brain injury. And that was when autism was first being researched, that were deaf. And we actually had one little boy that wasn't deaf, but he did not respond to sound or anything. Everything worked fine, but it was just part of his autism. And it was a chance to do research and spend time with them. And that just made it even deeper to me of, this is where I need to be. This is where I'm called to be. Came back out to Oregon, and then I was, I'd been playing volleyball, I'd been playing everything, very athletic. I'd been hiking, spelunking, you name it. I love the outdoors. Came home, began working in a school out here, and was exposed to meningitis, of all things.
Okay.
The injection they gave me, because we still hadn't figured out, we knew I had some illness. We didn't know what it was. I would rash all the time. We didn't know what it was. I got the injection, and I went into anaphylactic reaction, proceeded from that into a coma, came out of that with the left side of my body paralyzed. It was like, in my heart, I remember first saying, okay, Lord, why? I'm doing what I love. And then part of me hit me, was like, wait a minute, I'm doing what I love. It was like, wow, get me where you need me to be. Get me. And I got back up on my feet on crutches. And then right after, on our honeymoon, took a 4-wheeler off a cliff that landed on my back and punctured T4. And so then I was back in the chair. I got back up on crutches, and I was working in physical therapy, and I was working with a complex patient. I preferred the elderly complex. I wanted peds, but my calling, God showed me that elderly are kind of like working with peds, but you don't have their parents to mess with.
Yeah, that's true.
But but it was such a blessing to work with these people. I met amazing people, and I chose the complex cases because I've always been a champion for the underdog. Mm-hmm. And I was working with a woman who was mid-stage Alzheimer's, schizophrenic with a fractured hip. She got startled and she threw me backwards and separated my skull from my spine. Thankfully, I was in a medical center at the time because I didn't have, if they put a collar on me, couldn't have survived. But being in a medical center, they didn't have to. It was one of those God things. He had me where he needed me for this to happen, to get me on the track of what I needed to do. It was a blessing in a lot of ways because I worked with kids in wheelchairs I started a group called Winners on Wheels of Oregon. Did it for 20 years of letting them see that life doesn't stop on wheels. Life on wheels is where you're free.
Right.
You go as fast as you want, as far as you want. The only thing that'll stop you is stairs. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if you're creative enough, you can usually get around them. And I wanted them to never quit. It's not about how fast you get there. It's about getting there. And it's the journey, not the destination. Right. And it gave me a lot of purpose to spend time with those kids. And it was meeting what I really felt was my calling. I still wanted to go. I still had this draw to go to the mission field, but I finally realized that was my mission field. That's where God wanted me, was with kids with disabilities. But at that time, I had my wheelchair, and I did not have a modified van. I was taking my chair apart and putting it in, putting all the equipment in for the organization, and it was a lot of work.
Right.
But it was worth it. Those kids were so worth it. Everything I did was worth it. I love life. I just love life. Fast forward 2002. I've been trying to adopt through the state of Oregon, which we got the law changed. So I'm happy for that.
Let me interrupt. Was there a law that prevented people that had disabilities from adopting?
Yes. In Oregon, you could not adopt if you were in a wheelchair because you were more prone to abuse.
Oh.
It was an old thing out of the 40s, 50s.
Right.
People with disabilities, what they looked at was the ones that were in the mental asylums and things.
Okay.
Rather than seeing that if you used a wheelchair, that didn't stop you from being a good parent.
Right.
And in Oregon, you could not adopt if you were in a wheelchair. And this was in 84.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that amazing? I mean, whenever we give timelines and dates for changes that have been made, like in the last 50 years, it blows my mind. And I think I love to tell the youth about this. It's like, you realize that your mother was not allowed to do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's just 84. That's amazing.
You had to wear dresses to school. You couldn't wear
pants. I do remember that. Yeah. Even in Chicago, I grew up there, we had to dress to school.
Yeah. Well, and access is so delayed. It's when I went to college to get my degree, it took me an extra 4 years because I had one class to take. That class was in a building with no access, and the teacher at that time was not required to move the class to where it was accessible.
Right.
It wasn't until 1998 that they were required to move the class.
So how did you get around that?
I didn't get my degree. I couldn't. I had to wait.
Oh, okay.
So I could there was no other way to get it unless I went to another school, but they wouldn't accept all the credits transferring. And it was just like, it's one class. So I just didn't stay silent. I just kept begging them. I sat out in front of the building when people would go in and say, you're going into a class. They won't let me in. Why not? Why don't you ask them? And I kept pushing people, just start the conversation. And the rules change now. They have to accommodate, and they have to either put access or move it, which people don't realize that really didn't come into effect until close to 2000.
And you know what I love? Exactly what you said. I didn't stop complaining. I didn't stop making it known. I kept being that little grain of salt or that little tiny pebble that's in your shoe, because that's the only way things get changed. And that's the interesting thing about when people are told to just be patient or kind or wait. It's like, those aren't the people that make the changes. And because of people like you that are like, yeah, I'm going to keep talking about this, that things get changed. But yeah, that's amazing.
Well, and you have to, but you can't, if you go in like a bull in a china shop, they're going to put up a wall.
That's right.
And with kindness. And it's like, I would show up and send a box of cookies into the teacher. Hey, have these in class. I showed up a coffee for the teacher. Hey, I can't get in. Will you take this coffee to the teacher? Just random.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
It eventually got the teacher to have a conversation with me.
Oh.
Because I wasn't going away.
Right.
I was going to be there. And
that's the key.
The thing is, I didn't want them to be well, I'm doing this because I have to.
Right.
I wanted them to be, you know what? It's a benefit to all of us if I do this.
Right.
You know, I look at that and how much things like that have impacted my child. If somebody hadn't done that with school districts, my child couldn't have gone to our community school.
Right. Yeah. The whole inclusion program of schools is very recent.
And it's, people don't understand the impact of, my child may not be able to learn everything they're learning, but I guarantee those kids in the classroom with her have learned more than my child ever will, because they've learned compassion. They've learned advocacy. You know, kids, when they had a fire in the building, and the first thing the kids did, number one, they all sent me a text to let me know that they had Brighton, she was okay. I mean, they took her in and watched out for her, because the teachers are dealing with everybody in the building, and the students have learned to advocate. And I've watched their younger siblings with kids in wheelchairs now advocating on the playground for, hey, he can't get over here.
Right.
Can we put something? I watched kids lay out boards so a kid could get where they were going to play. And this was at a school because they're older siblings.
Right.
And it's
and they did that on their own. It wasn't a program. It wasn't a class. It wasn't you know, they didn't bring in a special speaker for an assembly. You know, they experienced her just being there. Yeah. Just
the kids came together. My daughter was being denied access to outdoor school. Our district had always gone to an accessible camp.
Right.
Well, they decided that her year of outdoor school, they would go to a different one. The only one in the state of Oregon that's not wheelchair accessible.
Oh, okay.
And you know, they offered me an alternative, and I said no, and I threw them back my suggestion on how we were going to not make them move that camp. They had that camp. But we're going to accommodate, and this is how you're going to do it. And okay, we couldn't stay there. They're going to pay for us to stay in the hotel closest there. They're going to pay my mileage. They're renting us an ATV so I can drive her around at the camp. And I wasn't going to let her out. And the interesting part was the kids in her class were all saying, we don't want to go to that camp if she can't go, because she deserves to go with us.
Oh.
And they weren't saying, you know, you guys are bad or anything, but everybody was saying the same thing of, we want to be together. Yeah. We want to be together. We're all together, and it's a bonding time, and we want her. And I love that they became her advocates, because I'm not going to forever be here.
No.
He's those advocates, and they're going to go out into the business world and become advocates.
Oh, that's such a great point. That, yeah, they become adults, they have children, they're going to be the ones making rules and laws, and that's how the world will change.
And they're the ones that are going to go into a business and say, hey, you know, there's 2 steps to get in here.
Right. So go back and talk about, so Oregon didn't have adoption friendly rules, and so go back to that story.
So we were trying to get a little girl. Everything fell through. It was kind of an odd case, doing through private, and it was just like, just praying, you know, God, where's the child for us? Because being a mom was like my dream occupation. People said, what do you want to be? I want to be a mom. Then I wanted to be a medical missionary. Then, you know, it's like, mom can't, you know, but mom was always my priority. Right. Mom was like, to me, the most powerful role you can have in the world. Right. And we got a phone call stating they had this little girl, wasn't born yet, but she probably had lethal campomelic dysplasia, wouldn't live very long, but were we interested? Well, yeah, it's a child.
Right.
If they take 1 breath or if they take 1,000,000 breaths, they deserve love in that time. We applied, were accepted. And they called us the day she was born and said, she's way more severe than we thought. Do you still want her? And I said, well, you can't put her back, and I'm not going to give her back.
Right, exactly. Return. Yeah, no.
Put her back where you got her. But yeah, we flew back to get her. She was in the NICU for 108 days before she was stable enough to come home. And they kept calling and saying, she's not going to survive. She's not going to survive. And they started on her experimental medication. They're like, are you really okay with it? And we had to sign papers. They said that this had a potential for giving her within the next 50 years causing cancer. And I said, well, she's going to live 6 hours. She's going to live 50 years if you give it to her, and maybe cancer. And in 50 years, we might have a cure for cancer. So give it to her.
Wow. So they acknowledged that what they could give her, which would help her survive, would also possibly cause cancer. They acknowledged that. That's amazing. That's
because it's still an experimental drug. It hasn't been fully cleared.
Okay.
And she's been on it. And the interesting part is, had she not been where she was, so it's another God thing of, she was born there because it was next to Yale. Yale was the only place in the world doing an experiment with kids with this medication.
Okay. Which give our listeners the layman's description of her condition. Is it a genetic condition, or what? How do they?
There's this genetic mutation that goes under the umbrella for lethal osteogenesis imperfecta, or brittle bone.
Okay.
She's never been taken off the potentially lethal list because she's got so many things that she fights, so many organs that we fight, so many. If she goes more than 10 weeks without this medication, her body just starts failing. This medication is sustaining her. Nobody knows why. It's just.
So this same medication that they said, look, this is an experimental drug. It could be lethal, but we're going to give it to her. She's still taking that.
She's still taking it. Yep.
Wow, thank heaven.
And now more kids take it. It's done a lot different. It's still experimental.
Yeah.
But it's been our miracle drug. And everybody has a little different response. But for us, it's been God's gift to us because of where she was. Had she been anywhere else, she could never have got it. She wouldn't have survived.
Right.
She's thriving. She has the rare osteogenesis imperfecta. She has PFD, which is, she also has PFD, which is her bones have like these holes in them. They just open a hole and it looks like ground glass in it.
Oh, wow.
And then it's like, you know, the styrofoam peanuts things.
Right.
Every once in a while you hear it sounds like somebody stepped on one of those and it's the bone just explode.
Whoa.
And you know, you just have to splint her and get her comfortable, and there's nothing that can be done. There's nothing, because if you do x-rays, it worsens it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Now, why is that? Is the procedure
radiation progresses it, and it's another rare thing. So it's, and we know that they can't splint her, they can't do anything, they can't do a cast. Weight of a cast will break her bone. So I splint her at home. I've got the medication. I do everything. Unless I can't control pain, then we go to the hospital.
Right, right.
But I learned a long time ago, it wasn't worth putting her through all the tests to come home and do exactly what we would have done without it. It's an hour drive to the hospital, the wait in the emergency room, exposed to all those. And because of her genetics, she has an interferon building block deficiency. She doesn't have a good immune system.
Oh.
So in an emergency room, she catches everything there.
Right, right. Oh,
so
yeah. It's the worst place you could be if you're sick, right? As they say, is the hospital.
Yep. Wow. So we keep them there. But she's a kid that we were told if she survived, it would be 6 hours and 6 days and 6 weeks and 6 months at the most. So I brought her home at 108 days old. They said she won't live past 6 months. So then every year on her birthday, I send that doctor a photo and an update of what she's done the last year.
That's fair. And do they respond? Does the doctor
he has, and he said they never expected this. They said she was in such bad shape and there was nothing they could do. And you know, at a year old, she was still only able to eat 4 ounces of formula. Wow. She was just so fragile, so weak, but she's thriving. Right. Her bones are very deformed, but she was a freshman in high school and she was in the hospital actually and very sick. And the doctor said, she's not going to pull through this one. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, I'm going to get better if you'll let me do track.
Oh, I love her. She somehow got your fighting instinct there. She's like, oh yeah, let me tell you how this is going to go.
Yep. It's like she takes it as a challenge. I said, if you want to do track, I'll make it happen. But she couldn't hardly push a manual chair without her arms breaking. So how she was going to do track, I don't know.
Yes.
But she got better enough that we got out of the hospital, and I went to the school and I said to the track coach, and I said, here's the deal. And to the athletic director, two of them, I said, she wants to do track. We've never had a wheelchair athlete, even in our district, much less at school. So she was the only kid in a wheelchair all through school. And then others have come in younger, but we've never had a wheelchair athlete. So I said, now, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
They were kind of,
where does she compete? How do they put her in?
Yeah. I was like, we're going to problem solve all this. And their first questions were like, what do we do if she breaks? And I said, we split her, give her medicine, and she can decide if she needs to rest or go. They kind of looked at me like it was really weird, but I said, you know, this is her life. She's going to break laying in bed. She's going to break.
Exactly. Watching TV at home. Yeah.
So what do we want to do? They did some phone calls around to the state to get the approval to have, which it's amazing. You have to get an approval to have a wheelchair athlete. They called the venues where we competed to find out, is there wheelchair access? When there wasn't, then they just changed and put us into a different meet. They made sure she could go. Wow. I had to find a wheelchair And there's a guy down at World Wheelchair Sports outside Eugene that rents, well, doesn't really rent. He loans these kids these chairs, racing chairs, and these are $3,000, $4,000 chairs.
Right.
And he had a little tiny one that no one else fit into because she's so tiny that her arms couldn't reach the wheels. He had this little tiny little one. It was still big on her, but she could do it. First time that she did the 60-yard dash, just practicing, it took her 4.5 minutes just to do that distance. Wow. But she didn't quit. I mean, it's 60 yards is 4.5 minutes is like really, but at the end of the season, she did it in 34 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody was blown away, just in shock.
Okay, so in spite of her bones, she developed strength. So lungs, every cell in her body was strengthened by that aerobic activity and then just moving the wheels. Did she ever break when she was? We were at one meet, and what was fast, I love our district. We have the best district in the United States because we would have a meet with all the schools, and the minute Brighton was going to race, every school stopped what they were doing, came to the sidelines and cheered for her. She was the only wheelchair athlete. Kids were out there just cheering. Everything came to a halt. And it was so good for her to see she mattered that much to them, because then she was there cheering for every one of them, no matter what team they were on. But she was on a 60-yard. You're going to tell me to bring Kleenex to this thing. Doggone it. That's amazing.
It was beautiful. I've got a video of it, but it's not a good video because I'm shaking and crying. So it was just beautiful. But she got right at about 40 yards. And I heard the snap, and her thumb and her wrist broke.
Wow.
She quit pushing for a second. She readjusted so she could hit her forearm on the wheel, and she finished the race. No. And then she looked at me and she said, "Mom, I think we need a splint and x-ray pain medicine. Can I go home?"
2.3 doses stat. She's got it down, right?
Yeah, she got to the end, and that's all she could get out before she burst into tears from pain. But she didn't quit. And it crushed the coach just sat down on the sidelines when he heard it. He just didn't know what to do because he felt so helpless.
Right. Wow.
And then it was good for him that it happened.
Right.
Because he realized that big deal, little deal.
Yeah.
Which is it? Right. If we make it a big deal, she's going to be afraid. She's never going to continue. Okay. If we make it a little deal, we handle it, she goes on. And that's how you have to realize it's a little thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's to others, it would be a big thing.
Right.
But it's a little thing because we can splint it, medicate, and then she can choose what to do next. And that power of choice is what makes a kid with a disability thrive. When you give them
choice right there. And the other thing too, big deal, little deal. I'm going to have to embroider so many pillows now with all your statements. But I think because of what you've gone through and your journey that ended where you are now, that's where you get the idea, big deal, little deal. I know, this can be overcome. We can deal with this. This is life. We're going to handle this. This might be a little bit, might have to stop and think about this one a little bit, but you've got that pendulum going in the right direction all the time because you've experienced that. And I think that's where the frustration is. And I've even found, Terrell, and I think that's why you do what you do with your accessible vehicle, is because you understand the important things and the things that are like, I can handle this. Because, we have a nonprofit that services children that are dependent on wheelchairs. We get applications all the time. And sometimes it's a little comical when people will put in an application and they'll say, I have a 3-year-old or I have a 2-year-old, and we need an accessible vehicle. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but you know what? They're still in a car seat. And everybody who has a 2-year-old has to bend over, pick them up out of their stroller, put them in a car seat, buckle it up. It's a pain. I know it's a pain, but everybody with a 2-year-old has to do that. But they are so blown away from they never planned on having a child with a disability. They never planned. This was like something they never planned. They're not used to it. It's not part of their, their paradigm. And so this to them is, I'm done. I cannot go on living. This is the most horriblest thing. And so it's kind of funny. I mean, our guy was 13 before we got an accessible vehicle. I'm picking him up. I'm shoving pillows around him. I'm putting the wheelchair in the back of the car. And so when you get it, you're like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. I need to do this now, but it puts it perspective. There needs to be let's put everything back in perspective. And yeah, you've got an amazing perspective. But so so track, is done, or what is she doing now that she's in this different program?
So right now we've kind of been laying low on track. She's had a really, 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 really rough year. I mean, medically, she's had so many fractures and health-wise, it's been one of those years where if it hadn't been for COVID, we would have had a lot more time in the hospital, but I refused to put her in there.
Oh yeah, scary.
Because she's got oxygen at home now and things that we haven't had since she was 6 months old.
Oh.
But just she struggled health-wise. She wants to get back and doing the track. She wants to get, she's qualified to go down to Angel City. Problem is they mandate the vaccine, and with her genetic disorder, she can't have it. No. She doesn't build. She's had every one of her vaccines, and she has 0 titers. She does not build immunity to anything.
Okay.
And she's had chickenpox 4 times, still has no immunity.
Yeah.
Giving her,
her immune issues are it's like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah. So, we've had to make that, and I let her make the choice because it's like everything in her life from the time she was small. She had a choice, even if it was homework. Okay, do you want to do math first or reading first? It wasn't, do you want to do homework? Always a choice that both were a valid answer, so that she knew that she had choices and didn't have to choose a bad one.
And had some control over her life. Now, I want you to mention, and obviously you talk about what you're comfortable talking about, but you've pretty much been a single mom for most of Brighton's life. Is that correct?
Yep.
I think that's important for people to understand that. Where does your support, I mean, your mom is out of this world, but yeah, what has been your best support system?
My sister is amazing, absolutely amazing. But my community is, this community we live in is so strong, but my faith is my number one support system. It is. That's the only thing there at 3 a.m. That's the only thing there at 2 a.m. When you're sitting in, waiting in the room while your kid's in surgery, that's what's there. And I think faith and God and all that is what has got me through. And just my child's ability to reach the world. She started that Brighton Strong. And she came up, so right after COVID started and we had all the Back the Blue, and we had all the police, everything, all the riots.
Oh, right.
She said, Mom.
That's right. People, just to remember, she's close to Portland. Okay, that's all I have to say. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just to
and we have so many friends. I mean, my sister's the dispatcher for the Portland Police. She oversees a lot of it. And we knew, and we've got friends who's our Portland Police, and so we had this, and she just was struggling. And finally she said, we got to do something to let the police know we care. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do? She goes, it hurts my heart. And I said, I know it does. It's really sad. And she goes, well, can we make blue hearts?
Oh,
yeah. And I said, what do you want to do with them? She goes, well, let's tell them that they matter. So she started this Brighton Strong doing heart attacks. And a heart attack is when you go and you put hearts on a building that all the Pause saying, we believe in you, we care about you, for the police stations. That started off just doing a few. She saw the police were getting their gasoline down at the, pump your own thing down here in town.
Right.
And so she said, we got to go home. I said, why? She said, just go home, give me some blue hearts. I'm like, okay. They came home, we went back down. She put it on their gas pump.
Oh,
they came in the middle of the night after a run. They would see somebody saying, hey, you matter. We care about you. We're praying for you. Oh. It's very important to her that she knows that she's praying, that they're praying for her.
Right.
We've gone to so many police. We've now traveled over 25,000 miles putting these hearts up.
Seriously.
35
all over Oregon or where?
We haven't done all of Oregon. We've done 25 states. We've done 2 Canadian provinces. And she's now planning another trip where we're going to be able to hit probably another 50 police and fire. She's also started doing fire stations because after the fire here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was, I have to say, as a parent.
Yeah.
Because we could see the fire from our front yard.
Right.
My sister's house, we watched her camera until the fire came through and took out her power. We are about a third of our friends lost their homes, their everything.
Right.
that was hard. And then when we got the 15-minute notice, you need to evacuate. I mean, we were told we were okay, we're going to be okay. They came through and said, you got 15 minutes, pack up. I'm in a wheelchair. My kid's in a wheelchair.
Right.
I've got to pack up. Now, somebody who's able-bodied might be able to do it.
Yeah. They can rush around, push things over, grab things real quick, you know,
well, the
both
kid
arms.
can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, medical supplies, what do I need? You know, it was, and all my kids said was, Mom, can we take red paper?
Oh. Yeah.
Why do we need red paper? I mean, it's like this, you know, why? She goes, well, because then when we get wherever we're going, because there was no hotels in Portland. Seaside was the nearest place we could get for the night.
Wow.
And so, number one, I'm just like watching because we had three fires around our town. We had to go through them to get out. And watching the flames from all three fires, watching the smoke roll in and overtake everything and wondering, we're stuck in traffic. Are we going to get out of here? I mean, it was just.
Yeah. How much gas do you have? And will your gas last? I mean, did you get, you know, like you said, you were told everything was fine and then you have 15 minutes. So there were probably a lot of people that didn't gas up the night before. So.
Yeah. Well, and it just, my kids got respiratory issues. I have respiratory issues from smoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just that, am I doing what's right? And just a lot of praying, but her whole focus was, we need to take red paper. We need to make red hearts and we need to put it on the fire department. The first thing she did when we were able to come back to Estacada was she said, Mom, first thing we're doing, we hadn't even unpacked the car. We had to stop at the fire station and put out the red hearts she had made on their trucks in the station and thank them for being there. That's all she wanted to do. That was the first thing she had to do.
Now, did you literally have somebody come and knock on your door and say you need to evacuate?
15 minutes.
So did you say, like, what about other people that are in a wheelchair that don't have a wheelchair accessible vehicle? They rely on public transportation. What are you doing with them?
At that point, I had contacted a couple of people who were in town who were helping with some evacuations. And I said, what about the seniors?
Right.
Because my first thing was, we're still clear. We can see the fire, but it hasn't jumped that ravine. If we need to go throw somebody in our van, take them, great. While I was gathering stuff up, somebody borrowed my van and took it and got an elderly couple out. The husband's in a wheelchair.
Oh.
Took them to the evacuation, then brought my van back.
Okay.
And then, but they were trying to get their kid out and they offered to help. And I was just like, you haven't packed your stuff up yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go get your stuff done.
Right.
So, you know, we knew if we didn't make it in 15 minutes, we were going to be okay because of where we're located, but it was stressful. It was intimidating. And
right.
I know I would do it different next time just because I've got the experience. I mean, 6 years before we had evacuations from a fire, but we can only see the smoke.
Okay.
There was something about for 24 hours watching the flames and then watching my sister's home and our friends lose everything. And
right.
then it was so real.
And I think that's the other thing too, that you said was, where do we go? They're like, you have 15 minutes to evacuate. Okay. Where am I going? Just out of town, I guess. But then once you get there, how long did you have to be away from your home?
So we were out, well, we were supposed to be out longer. We stayed out 10 days.
Wow. Where did you find a place to stay? Where did you end up?
And that's the thing that people don't think about. Finding a wheelchair accessible room at a hotel.
Yeah.
Our first night, we were in one that they said could accommodate wheelchairs. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know what size wheelchair.
Yeah.
Much less not to. So we had to deal with that. But when we came back, we were in a hotel that had great wheelchair access, but they were remodeling the front and you had to come in the back. The back had a big steep hill that I couldn't even get up.
Oh.
But the thing is, there was no other, you know, I could have gone across the mountain, but at that point, I just wanted to be close to home.
Right.
I didn't want to be a long ways away. I wanted to be by my house as close as I could. And,
right.
But once we got in the hotel, because I had friends help me get in, I was like, I can't run to the store.
No.
I can't run go get food because I can't get back up that hill.
It
was frustrating that their idea of wheelchair access was anything but.
Right.
And I just wish that hotels have this, I don't know if you run into it much, this common thing of if you're in a wheelchair, there's going to be one bed. You can't have a family.
Right.
You mustn't have a family. There's one bed. Well, if you have a family, you just need to rent a second room. I don't want to rent a second room. I got a child. I don't want to put her in a different room.
Right. Right.
And
the other thing too, that I remember you mentioning one time is they don't hold that room. They rent those rooms out to, you know, ambulatory people that do not rely on wheelchairs. So you didn't you have a story where you had actually reserved a room and then you got there and they're like, yeah, we're full. You're like, no, I have a reservation. and they had put someone in that room, and rather than move them, they told you, sorry, we just, what did they do? Did they actually move those people, or what did they end up doing?
What they did is we got there and the lady said, well, we have an ADA room you can have.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I said, is it accessible? And she goes, well, yeah, it's right over there. And I said, how do I get there? And she said, well, just go down that hallway. I said, there's 2 steps there. And she said, well, yeah, just go up the steps.
You see, talk about she became visible. Do you see the wheelchairs right here?
I said, do me a favor, give me a chair. I'll hop out. You hop in my chair and you show me how to wheel up those steps.
Yeah.
And she just looked at me and she goes, oh,
yeah.
Well, the other people didn't want to walk up the steps. So we just went ahead and gave them the wheelchair room. And I said,
they didn't want to walk up.
Steps. I would, because I said that's a choice you have. I don't have that choice.
Right.
And my daughter with her 250-pound wheelchair does not have that choice. I'm not picking her up that.
Right.
And they were just like, no. So they said we could just go to another hotel.
Oh, okay.
Everything's booked. It was 200 miles before we found a hotel.
Oh my gosh, you're practically to Seattle. That's amazing.
So it was, we drove for an extra 4.5 hours to find a hotel. And this was, so it was almost midnight before we got to the hotel. And the hotel we got to, I have to say, was absolutely amazing. When they found out what had happened, they called the other hotel, and then they didn't charge us that night. They did not charge us.
The least they could do. Was it a chain? Were they in the same chain of hotels?
Nope, not the same chain or anything.
Oh, wow. Completely. That's amazing.
But they were just amazing. They were so helpful.
Yeah.
And that's what I find is most people are really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are there's a difference between being ignorant and honestly ignorant. And a lot of people are honestly ignorant. I mean,
exactly.
They mean well, they're doing it right. They have everything. We went to a hotel up in Washington, outside Spokane. I saw the pictures of the room, fully accessible, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful room. And I go and I check in and I said, okay, so now where's the room? Because I look out of the lobby and there was steps down, there were steps up. And she said, oh, it's down the end of that hallway. I said, well, how do I get there? And she goes, well, you can go this way or in the end door. And I said, has anybody in a wheelchair ever used that room? And she goes, no. I said, do you know why? And she looked at me like, she goes, no, because we've made it fully accessible. I said, what about the steps? And the look on her face was, she's like, I never even noticed that I did those steps. Wow. Because she did it every day and she just never noticed. Then she's like, well, now I know why. Yeah. And then she was so apologetic that chain actually got us a hotel and a hotel room elsewhere. Actually, they didn't have a hotel room, so they rented us it was
extended stay or something, or?
Yeah, it was somebody that does the
Airbnb
thing. Yeah, Airbnb, but it was a full house.
Whoa, yeah.
And we could get in on the main floor, couldn't get upstairs, but it had a bedroom and everything. So, and I mean, they rented it for us.
Amazing. Yeah.
Had us dinner and they were so apologetic, but it was just, they honestly had never seen the steps.
Well, and that's the problem with the parking. It's not that people are mean or selfish or whatever. They don't understand that it's not, and I've always said this, I don't have to be close to the front of the store because I'm pushing a wheelchair. So put me over here, put me down a little ways, but there has to be a difference between I have arthritis, or I've gotten older, my muscles don't work the way they were. I'm pregnant. Yeah. Or even, I'm sorry, I'm a veteran and I get offended by the parking places that are for veterans only. I'm like, what does that mean? I mean, let's push that a little bit for the disabled veterans or just veterans or, yeah. So it's like, I can't get out of my car, so I don't have an option. I have to drive around, but it's, it is not, like you say, it isn't malice. It's really just not understanding the depth of the word disabled or the word handicapped. It's not just, it's not just one thing. So that's
well, people don't understand that stripe zone is so that we can get our lift out. It's not there because we want extra space.
You needed a place to put your card after you got in. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that frustration. I used to park when it was just me out and then just wheel across, but I got hit twice by cars because in a wheelchair, you're the height of a 3-year-old, 4-year-old.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Cars backing up don't see you.
That's
twice. I was like, as much
especially
as I want to leave
the higher SUVs, I
Oregon.
actually, you know, I almost backed into a lady I was in a SUV. So I'm up high and she's in this little car. And I'm looking around. I didn't even see her. So you're absolutely right. That's true.
Yeah. And everybody says, well, put a flag on. And I was like, do you put a flag on your toddler? Do you put a flag on your 3 or 5? Would you put a flag on your grandmother? I mean, when does that become acceptable to say, put a flag on versus, oh, then let's do this. I mean, we shouldn't have to stand out. We want to stand up and make a difference. We don't want to have to stand out and be an object.
Right.
And that's getting people to see we're requesting this, not because we're being selfish and we want front row.
Right.
I've always said, you've got the parking across the whole front of a store. I don't care if you put me at the very last spot in the front of the store.
Exactly. Just give me a place to park.
Well, let me get my lift out and let me get my child out safe.
Right. Right.
You know, and these people who put the parking next to a curb, my lift from under my car can't go out next to a curb. It hits it.
Yeah. You know, Oregon actually has places that say for wheelchairs only. Arizona has the weirdest. They put the stripes on the left side of the car. And I'm like, okay, I guess that would work if you were the driver and you were, like you said, you were able to lift your chair and then you were getting yourself out, you know, if you're completely solo. But I've seen those more than the ramps on the right, which all accessible vehicles will put the door on the right. That's been the most confusing. It's like or the little stripe is like 4 feet wide. And I'm like, who's that for? I'm so confused, you know, it's really weird. I wish that was something that would be a federal national law that would just, you know, go into effect where these are wheelchair only, different color placard, you know, something like that. But, that's another issue.
And it makes such a difference because, you know, when I went to the school, because the school, when Brighton went to the high school, I mean, our school was built in 54.
Yeah.
It doesn't have amazing.
They didn't have handicapped children in 1954.
No, they didn't. That was when polio hit. So, you know, but it was, I went to the principal we had at the time who I wish they could clone him, put him in every school. I went to him and I said, okay, I've got to park my van to get my kid out to get her into school. Right. 2 problems. One, there's not a stripe zone wide enough because the one spot that had a stripe zone wide enough, they made for the SRO. So the police car parks there.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a conflict of.
It was like, no, wait a minute. And I talked to the SRO. And he swapped signs. he was funny. The school's like, well, no. And it's like, no, he's like, I don't need a stripe zone.
Let me get my wrench. I can fix it.
I was in with the principal and I said, there's 2 problems. 1, I can't get my lift out. 2, you got parents using that as a drop-off zone. The stripe zones are drop-off zones. That doesn't work. 3, there is no crosswalk from handicap to the front door. And the buses park in front of the ramp.
Yes.
And he just looked at me and he goes, they won't do any of that tomorrow. And he stood out there the next day, made sure everybody didn't do it. He got maintenance on it the next night. They painted a crosswalk. Everything. It was, I could drop my child off as a high schooler and let her go in by herself, just like every high schooler should.
Oh.
But until they did that, we couldn't.
Exactly.
They have a power door, and he's like, why don't we have more power doors? It's an old school. It's got turn knobs. She can't do those.
Right.
We bought those snap-on lever handles that just go over any knob, put them on. She could open. He couldn't afford to do the whole school, but he did the rooms she was going to be in. Yeah. And it's those little things like, can I open my door?
Yeah.
Can I reach the water bottle filling station? Things that her peers are doing. Right. And for kids, the more that's normal. And they, people would say, well, why don't you get her this adaptive device? And I said, I want you to go carry a rock. Just get a big boulder and carry it for no reason every day.
Right.
Just do it. See if it makes anybody stare at you.
Right.
And it's like, if she can use what's there every day,
right,
it's going to be there in the real world. She can feel part of the real world.
Exactly.
If she has to do it something different, carry something different to fit in their world, she's never going to feel that she's a part of it.
Right. And
the school adopted that. And her culinary teacher went above and beyond for her to have a kitchen she could do everything in.
Well, not only that, but I like that point that you made. It's like, look, I'm already rolling through life. So I stand out, mm-hmm. and Brighton has physical attributes that stand out. My son has attributes that stand out. So they're already standing out. We don't need to stand out anymore. But because they want to blend in with society. They want to blend in with their peers. And so they've already got 2 or 3 check marks against them. So let's do everything, that we can to make them fit in and not be such a visual, unique site. So that's now what I hear is a person who serves her community. What does Terrell do to serve Terrell that gives you the strength to be able to do this? What do you do for self-care?
For me, it sounds crazy, but I have a job that is for me. It's for my mental health. I love doing it. It challenges me. My boss thinks I'm crazy, but there's a certain part of my job that I say, give that to me. But the rest of the team over there, give me that. I love doing that part. And she's like, well, go for it. I mean, nobody else wants to sit and do that for hours, but it's relaxing. I sit and I play my Christian music, drink my tea, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. That's what I do. And it's me time.
So you work from home? You work from home?
I work from home.
Okay.
Which is amazing. My boss is awesome.
And you're doing computer work?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you find that job?
Actually, my niece started a company for a business that was needed for the court system. And she does the medical review and medical chroning and medical research.
Oh.
And she just needed people to go through, like somebody 78 years old, you go through every one of their medical files from the time they were born through and I love it. It's like some of the cases you get on, it's like you're trying to solve a case that there's like one, we had 10,000 people affected with a disease that there's usually is only maybe 2 or 3 a year in the whole world. And it was in one town. And what caused it? And it was so fun getting to do that, except it was like reading a bad novel, because by the time you get to the 1500th person and you see all the symptoms the doctors aren't getting, and you're just kind of like going like a Hallmark movie, you know how it's going to end, but
yeah.
Wow. But I love it. And it's relaxing to me. And I get to know these people just through their file and who they are. And, I love it. I feel like I have a voice for them because I do. I'm putting things down to be their voice.
I love that like you said, that you put on your music and which drowns out the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And that I don't think, and just as you mentioned, people talk about if they have a Christian faith and they talk about the works that Jesus did, they don't talk about the time that Jesus had to take for solidarity. He had to have some alone time to renew and to serve other people. He even had to have time. I got to get away. I've got to have some time to regroup, to think, to pray, or whatever. And people forget to talk about that because this constant go, service, you can't do that for very long before you start breaking down. So just even putting on headphones, drowning out the other noise that's going on, and then doing something that you love is so important. And I just can't stress that enough. It can never be looked at as a selfish act. It has to be looked at as self-care, as health, that you need to do this for your health. So I love that you do that.
And prior to being the single mom, and, we don't have a care provider right now. So I'm 24/7, 365, no break, especially with the COVID stuff and the kids home from school.
Was COVID a big part of that, losing nursing and caregiving?
Well, it was. I had one who was absolutely amazing. And how dare she grow up and go to college?
I know. The nerve. Fall in love and get married?
Right.
How dare you have a life? Yeah.
And then I had another one who was so awesome, who then decided that, she was married and decided to have a kid.
Yeah. That's what happened.
How dare you want to be a mom?
Yeah.
And I had another one that there was just a lot of things that it just wasn't healthy. And somebody can be really, really, really good, and that doesn't make a relationship with your child and them healthy.
Yeah.
And so since 1st of December, it's just been me. And Brighton's an amazing kid. And she's not, because we have a routine, she's not a hard kid, but she doesn't sleep. So you're up most of the time at night. And so by the time you get into like the 4th month of it, you're like,
yeah.
And, because prior to when I had free time, I love to go up the mountain, take photos. Brighton's an amazing photographer, so I don't even show mine, but I love to just go I have so many photos of the area upriver before the fire, and then photos since the fire and that recovery, and photos of just people and different things. And I love to just go out and get pictures. And that's one thing with the van is Brighton's a photographer. Brighton loves road trips. She loves to explore. And I mean, you know, with our old van, what it was like. How many times we would just get stranded in the middle of nowhere, and
Right.
we made the best of it. I mean, we would take pictures out the window because we usually were trapped in the van.
Right.
But we'd take pictures. We would find something positive, but that didn't make it
Right.
safe or healthy because,
yeah.
you know, when it was 90 degrees out and you can't even roll the windows down because everything quit, it was like not working.
Right.
But
right.
we, having the van, I can take, she wants to go practice her road racing upriver. I can take her racing chair, my chair, her manual chair, her power chair. When we went to Canada, I just happened to get a lap in my van. I should have taken a picture. I had my mom's scooter, my mom's walker. I had my daughter's racing chair, my daughter's manual chair, my daughter's power chair, and then her little on the ground car that can't tip out in the farm, my chair, spare tires for things, and then everything else for a 30-day trip.
Yeah.
And the van held it.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
That's a blessing because we were able to also take medical supplies to a family that couldn't get them and drop them off there. And it's given us wings. When we're called to serve, we can do it. And, you know, it's like, I was looking at a list of some of the things we've done and gone, I mean, it's always felt really good. We had the family who didn't have a way to get their 99-year-old mother to her own 100th birthday party.
Oh.
And they called and they said, somebody had given them my name and I had never met the lady. And she calls me and I said, yeah, I'll go pick her up. And I thought I'd get a sitter for Brighton, go do it. And Brighton said, I'm going to take her. So Brighton went along and we put her in the car. We gave her, and the one thing the lady said, she says, it was her 100th birthday. And she said, I have one thing I need to see. Do you mind? And I said, where is it? So we took a little detour to go by and see the home where her parents lived.
Oh.
It built into something else, but the property, and then go down to be dropped off to, she didn't know she was going to a 100th birthday.
Oh, okay. Okay. So she was like, yeah.
So we got to deliver her to the surprise party with the balloons and everybody there. And then we picked her up that night.
That's so important because people talk about isolation and, you know, as you age, you have to give up your driver's license, you have to give up your car. People kind of have acknowledged that part of isolation. For her to just want to drive by and see her old home is something we just take advantage of. We don't think about it, but that was everything, you know, to her. And it is one of, I don't know. I just wish that I could make it more known that you could have the most tricked out wheelchair. It could be the most scientifically, you know, advanced technology. It could get up and walk for you. Whatever, all these things they're coming out with. If you don't have a vehicle that'll take that, you're still stuck at home. So it's just so important for people to understand. And I wish there was a way we could get that through, but somehow it doesn't seem to be. I just can't get people to acknowledge that it's important. It's so funny because I'll talk to people about our nonprofit and they're like, yeah, you know, we already give to the, you know, American Heart Association. And I'm like, I know, and that's good, but you know, but let me tell you, you know, so frustrating. But
if we didn't have a van and they say take medical transport, with our van, I can get her to the doctor's office in an hour.
Right.
Medical transport, if she has a 10 a.m. appointment, they pick us up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
They get us here at 10, but they can't pick us up till 4 from 10. We don't get home till 12 hours for a 5-minute appointment.
Right.
And then sometimes they just can't get back to pick you up, and then they'll let you know at like 6 o'clock, saying we can't get there.
Yeah. We had a guy. Yeah, we had a guy whose mom and sister sat at a bus stop for 4 hours because they're like, yeah, we're not going out there. And he finally had to go and get them. And it was dark at a bus stop, 2 women at a bus stop. It absolutely blows my mind. It's so frightening. Yeah.
Well, my kid could not have done track because the school, I don't care what school bus you have, you can't call her racing chair, her manual chair, and get her power chair. It just isn't possible.
Right.
Plus, then you have to deal with transferring her, and because she's fragile enough, they hit a bump, she's going to break. So I need the custom van. Right. It's let her do track. I mean, and because of where we live, our district is down to Brookings, which is a 5.5 hour drive. It's clear out to Pendleton.
Wow.
So we aren't like Portland where you're in the district.
Right. Right.
Because we are in the smallest district in the state, because our high school only has 420 kids for 4 years. So it's small. You know, we're a small district, and so we have to travel to small districts.
Right.
That wheelchair van has let us travel there, but it's also let me take her to meet other people. She has such a rare disorder. There was one other person who's had it, and they passed away at 19 months. But there's a few other people who have very severe OI that's
Right.
presents similar to hers.
Okay.
And we've been able to go meet them, and she can see them and be with people.
She can see somebody that looks like her, that has the same story.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
And adults that are thriving.
Right. Oh,
because in school they keep saying, well, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to. And that's, I get it. They have an IEP where they're supposed to look at what the kids can't do.
Right.
That's all the kids hear. And you go to the doctors, they can't give you hope because then it's malpractice. So they give you so they get negatives everywhere.
Right.
And
can you imagine if we were if every day people were saying, yeah, I don't know, maybe another year. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Can you imagine if every person had a timeline every day that was, we'd all be like, all right, give me the Doritos. I'm just going to watch Netflix all day. Why bother? You know, you've got to have some hope. Somebody has to model your future a little bit.
Yeah. And so for her to see these other people on wheels,
yep,
driving, enjoying life. And we ran into one guy that I tried to get a hold of, but I could never get a hold of him. I had heard about him. So, it's the network, you hear about somebody.
Right.
We were in Disney World, and this guy comes wheeling by, and Brighton just lit up. I mean, she was having a rough day. She had broken her femur the day before. She split it, and she's feeling miserable. And she just was like, I really want to see all this, but I'm hurting. And then she sees him. She bolted. And she goes up to him and she says, do you have OI?
Uh-huh.
And he says, yeah. And she goes, do you have OI type 2 and 3? I said, yeah. And I mean, Brighton's like a more severe, but 2-3 is kind of worse. Yeah, 2-3. And he goes, yeah. She goes, it's so nice to meet you. And they talk. Brighton isn't a big conversation person, but they talked for almost an hour, finding out what is he doing, because he's in college and he still's with his parents because trying to find a dorm that's accessible, somebody to help him at college who's reliable. And, then when there's ice on the sidewalks, they shovel it wide enough for you to walk, but that's not wide enough for a wheelchair.
No. Yeah. Even if they made that little path, you got to go around them, or somebody's got to go around you. And
or they put all the snow in the stripe zone. I mean, it's like all the fun. But
darn stripe zone.
Still talks about the fact that he was there and he wasn't afraid to do the rides. He wasn't afraid, things that she wasn't sure about doing. And he said, don't do this one because it's real hard on my body, but you'll probably like this one because everybody can start, but it's not. And he gave her all these tips that empowered her to then because I can tell her what they're like, but I don't know on an OI body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm mom, so what do I know? But it's that whole.
That's a given. Yeah. She's still a teenager, people. Just remember that.
And she trusts me a lot, but sometimes it's kind of like, well, you wouldn't know, Mom. And it's like, well, no, I wouldn't, but here's my thoughts.
Yeah.
But, it gave her that insight I couldn't give her.
Right.
And that's so empowering. And had we not had the van, she could not have gotten that, because she's carried that on and made a friend that she stays in touch with.
Oh.
Because she wanted to go to an exhibit that he was traveling. It was here in town. Mm. And she knew he had done it because she'd seen on Facebook. So she asked him, was it good to go to for a chair? And he told her, don't pay.
Oh.
Everything is above your head. All the railings are right at wheelchair height.
Oh my gosh.
And the places where you could walk in to go see things had a turnstile thing in the middle, and you couldn't go through.
Oh so my God.
Chair, you looked at everything from a distance, but you paid the full price to go in and have the interaction. And he said, don't go. But we wouldn't have known that.
Right. Right.
And it was her having that. And then it's also a resource for her.
Yeah.
Because she had to get a new back brace and nobody knows how to make it. And she messaged him and says, what do you wear?
Yeah. Where did you get yours?
Sent a picture of his, and then the person here made one like it. So it was just like,
that's
I can't do that.
Amazing.
But that van is why we went and met that person.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And on her heart attack, it's making her see the importance difference she's making.
Right.
We were at one police station. We were putting the hearts up. And I'll never forget, these officers were filthy. They had been doing something. I didn't know what at the time.
Right.
Got out of their cars. You could see they were just totally beat down. And the guy in the front walks up and he read the first heart on the building, and he collapsed and just started crying.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay, it's like you don't know if somebody will do. Right. And then another officer came up and read it and sat next to him, put his arm around that one, and they just bawled together.
Oh.
And finally, the one guy got it together, and he stood up and he, without a word, gave Brighton a big hug. And Brighton's going, be careful.
Oh, yeah. Don't touch. Yeah. Oh, God.
Gave her a big hug, and he says, you don't understand. We were just on a manhunt for a guy who had killed his wife and child. And and then he killed himself. We couldn't even save him.
Oh,
We had come back with nothing.
right.
So we didn't save anybody. We didn't help anybody. And they had been out all night before they found, and they were just defeated.
Yeah.
And then he said, this is why we do this. This is what we're here for. He said, we can now go out on the next call after we get showers. He said, we can go do this now. He said, have we not seen this when we came in? He said, we were all saying, we just need to go home. We just can't do this.
Terrell, that to me encompasses everything that this podcast is about. It's rather than shrinking into your whatever system has put you in a mindset that you don't have value, or that you have a purpose, but your purpose is to stand behind, or to just be silent, or whatever system has made you think you don't have any voice. Your story of what that little tiny baby girl, she's 18, she graduated from high school. What size does she wear?
She's 38 inches tall. So she's the size of a 3-year-old. She's currently now wearing those size 4 to 6X or 4 or 6 pants, little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, she still use medium skirts. And
I just want people to get a grip of how tiny she is, and yet what she's doing. Talk about the tiny, and that little bit that she does to serve. And I bet you I could walk around Estacada and they would know who Brighton is, and because she's made herself visible, but not in a way that's like poor me, but I'm going to serve my community. And that's how I know my worth and my value. And I will be recognized for my love of humanity. It's just, I can't thank you enough for sharing your stories with me today. And I just know that, one of the great things about having a child with a disability is it does open up your eyes to what you took advantage of. I remember walking down the Pearl District in Portland, and when the ADA first started to, redo the curbs and start making stores mandatory that they open up their aisles and that they make a door somewhere. You have to make it accessible for everyone. They even, back in the old days, I know this will be hard for people to believe, but they had telephone booths. They lowered the telephone booths for people. Never
they didn't widen the door. They never widened.
Well, that one little.
I don't know how many times I sat outside one going, I can reach it, but I can't get in to reach it.
Well, it was a step. It was a first step, but but I would have never, ever thought of that when I was walking down, going to the store, walking around their Christmas decorations. They set out baskets all over the aisles. You couldn't even get through, and now I take my son shopping, and it makes you pretty, it does make you a little bit more assertive, because you get into these stairs and you're like, excuse me, you're going to have to move those little baskets of towels and that cute little wood grouping you have there, because I can't get through, and because of ADA, because of those people that pushed that through, that made people listen to their voices, we are receiving the benefits of having those voices, those people who weren't quiet, who stood up and like I said, everybody always talks about Terry Hoyt and how he used to push his son in those marathons, and he has a statue, and they talk about the Hoyt, nobody talks about where was mom? And Judy Hoyt is the one back east who got the inclusion program going. That benefited my life. The only thing that marathon thing did was make me feel guilty, because people would come up to me all the time and go, there's this guy that runs with his kid. Like, I just got through doing a 5K and I'm like, I could barely get me across the line. Okay. Don't make me feel guilty that I didn't push a 150-pound wheelchair and a 100-pound child at the same time. Do
an Ironman.
Yeah, there you go. But she gave my child life. She gave my child a social atmosphere. So it's just amazing. I wish I could do, she's hard. You Google Judy Hoyt and you have a hard time finding information about her.
Yeah. And he was so vocal that his son was the one that drove everything. His son pushed him to do it. His son, nonverbal,
right,
without saying a word, was able to tell everything. And many times he said, I want to quit. I couldn't do another one. And his son would convince him that he could.
I want to do this. Yeah.
And this nonverbal child made a difference to push the dad, to push the mom then to do things. Without that child, there would not be this. And people were like, dad did this and the mom did this. And I'm like, that kid, had he not used the voice he had,
That's right,
without saying a word.
That's right.
it never would have happened. And it's, to
Right.
me, these kids can do so much without saying a word.
That's
It just
right.
blows me away. And people are like,
Yeah.
yeah, but they're nonverbal. And I'm like, that doesn't mean they're not talking.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's perfect.
It's true. And it's
Yeah.
so, you know, my kid has a thing that she lives by, and I know you've seen it before, but she came up with a saying years ago that said, it only takes one person to make a difference. I am one person.
Yeah. That's all you need. That's all you
And
need.
it reminds her that, okay, that needs done. I may not be able to do it, but I'm one person and I can talk to others and get it done. I have the power to start. Like, you know, we've talked about the snowball. You can, you know, sit there with the snowball and go, wow, I wish it was bigger.
Right.
But until you give it a push, it's not going to grow.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like people outside of Estacada, people outside of Oregon may not have heard of Brighton, but those police officers, that changed their life. And it does. It only takes one person to make a difference. And
well, you know, and she's known all around the. In fact, we were in Louisiana on our last road trip doing her. That's all she wanted for her high school graduation. Not gifts, nothing. To take a road trip.
Yeah.
Across the country and put heart attacks and do heart attacks on police, fire, and veterans memorials to remind people they're not forgotten. That's all she wanted.
Yeah.
Which senior wants to take their senior road trip, their senior. Yeah. That's what she wanted. Yeah. We're in Louisiana and we had been doing hearts across the country. I got pulled over. Like, ooh. I'm not speeding. Yeah. I'm not doing anything. Well, on the back of the van, I have the Brighton Strong. Oh. Police officer comes up to me and he goes, "Is Brighton in here?"
No. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, "Okay, just a second." Goes back and comes back and he peels the patch off his uniform and gives it. Oh, you are one of us. Yeah. He said, "You have made a difference to all of us. So when you help one of us, you help us all." And apparently it's across the country, the police know. And so everybody in the police and fire that got one, on her 18th birthday, she was struggling. She said, "Mom, I'm just not sure if I matter. I mean, what if I die, would I matter? Would I matter?" And I said, "You would." Well, I'd put out there to my friends that, hey, you know, she's struggling right now. She's turning 18. She doesn't want to be an adult. Right. Because it's so confusing. And you know what transferring medical care for adults is like. Right. And she was scared. So a bunch of my friends sent cards. And I surprised her with going to Disney for her 18th birthday because that's her safe place. Yeah. And I had just put all the cards into a bag. I haven't even looked at them. We get down there. She had over 60 cards from police stations around the country. Oh my gosh. Places we had never been, but with stories about how it impacted them, and the places where she had been about stories. Most of them sent patches. We have her prayer board, which supports the side of the word, that's got patches all the way around it. It was just like, I was in tears reading their messages. Some of them were so heartbreaking. About the one lady who had said she had quit. She had quit the day before, police officer. And then her friends called her in just to see the building. They sent her pictures and said, "You got to come see this." And she came in and she saw it. And she said she realized she couldn't quit because she needed to be there for the kids. So if they get on Brighton Strong, is that .com? Well, how do they find her? It's on Facebook. Facebook. And Brighton Strong, all one word. Okay. And it's BRYTON? No, EN. BRYTEN. Okay. Brighton Strong, one word, Facebook. Yep. Okay. And the picture is her in her yellow outfit and it's got her thing. Okay. But, you know, she does things like she's got these little cards, blessing cards. Yeah. And she sees somebody, she hands it to him. And what the card says is, "Here, I see you. You matter. I care about you. You, because you're here, somebody's having a better day." Yeah. You know, you are valuable. You're important. And it's like, she just hands it. And her big thing is she doesn't want to handle it to people in the suits and rich people and famous. She doesn't want to hand it to them. She's not interested in them. No. Homeless people. She wants to make sure they all get one. Oh. Janitors. She sees people cleaning anything up, like in rest areas. Yeah. She gives them one and thanks them. And then she prays. The police, everybody she meets, she prays with them before she leaves. Oh. And the reception of people for my kid to go up to them. She saw a lady in a police shirt, police dispatch shirt on the street in one of the small towns in Oregon. And my kid is like, I'm sometimes scared, but she races that chair right up in front of the lady and stop her. And I'm just like, she goes, "What did you do?" I don't know. She didn't tell me what she's doing. You're rolling, trying to catch up with her. It's like, wait. And she stops the lady and she goes, "You're not okay." And I'm like, my kid from across the street saw this lady and went up to her and said, "You're not okay." And the lady, when I looked up, the lady had tear-stained eyes. And Brighton goes, "I need to pray for you." Oh. She goes, "I need to pray for you." And she goes, "What else can I do?" And the lady just sat down on the curb and she was crying. And my kid prayed with her. And my kid's like, Mom, go to the car, go to the car, because I always keep water in the car.
Okay.
Go to the car, get her some water. So I went to the car. She goes, no, Mom, get her a snack too. And I'm like,
okay, Jay.
she sat there and she talked to this lady for probably a half hour. And then finally got her laughing, and then started talking to her about, hey, Disney, do you like Disney characters? And she's telling her, you know, when you're having a hard day, sometimes you just got to stop and think, Disney.
Yeah.
Think of what, find your happy place, go in the bathroom, sit in your happy place in your head. Because she goes, well, the bathroom's not my happy place, but at least there's nobody else in there.
Yeah.
But, you know, she just, and the lady got with a big smile and walked off. And I'm like, my kid just went to a random stranger a block away.
Right.
That she was having. It's like, how many of us have the courage to go up to somebody and just pray?
No, I know. Sometimes I see people, right? You know, they'll have an adult child in a some kind of like an adult stroller or something like that, and so I'll see them and I think, oh, should I stop? I don't want to bother them. I bet they get so tired of people, you know, bothering them, and I've been stopped, and most of the time it doesn't bother me. The only time it's ever bothered me is when it's like, look, I got 15 minutes to get my grocery shopping done. And you're like, I don't want to start at the beginning. Well, it was a dark and dreary night, you know, so you tell your whole life story. But most of the time it's been amazing, but I hold back. I don't want to approach people because I'm so afraid of that. So that's amazing. Well, I got to go. Okay. You've been amazing. I can't believe what you and your daughter do and the constant service that you do. It gets me every single time I read your posts. I'm just like, okay, dang it. You need to do more. You need to let this known. And I just need to be more grateful. And
you do so much. I mean, I look at, had it not been for you, we could not do what we're doing. Had it not been for you, Michelle couldn't do the things. All these other people, it hadn't been for you, could not be doing what they're doing. You are such a catalyst and such a key part. Because without you, and it's like, you know, we say that our van, the Steelman, was the key to our life, because without that key, we'd be sitting home. With that key, we can do this. I mean, we live by the saying of aspire to inspire before you expire.
Oh, I love it. I got it. Now I have to embroider another pillow. You're full of them.
It's just one of those, it's like, have a goal.
Yeah.
But don't keep it to yourself.
Don't keep it to yourself.
Share it.
Visible. Share it. I love it.
Be visible. You don't have to be vocal to be visible. Just be there.
Just be there.
Like sometimes picking up a piece of trash and throw it away so the janitor doesn't have to will bring them to tears. I mean, it's not hard to make a difference.
No,
Smile at someone.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again. You know, it gets hot in Arizona, but like I said, we do have a swimming pool with a lift. So if you ever get tired of that 30 degrees, you know, head south.
I know it's still snowing. It's just like, I need to talk with you because she's already planned out another road trip for July, August, which I'm thinking I don't like July, August road trips are so hot, but
probably not the place you want to be in July and August. But like I said, we do have air conditioning.
At a pool. Come on, we were in Death Valley in July and August. So.
Okay, there you go. Sounds great.
She just wants to go do heart attacks, and you know what? It'd be fun to come down there and heart attack your community too.
Yeah, that I would love that. All right. Love you, Terrell.
Right, take care. Thank you for everything.
Okay. Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh, you guys, is that not the most inspiring thing okay. If you guys are like me, you're all sitting there going, oh, I'm a bum. I'm just a bum. I haven't done my share of love and sharing today. But you know what? I love the message that Brighton is giving, which is you can be visible. You can make a difference. You can become a light or in someone else's life with the simplest thing, just showing them that you care. So I love the message that she had. And you know what? It's nobody wants to be invisible. And sometimes we have to be the ones that do the work to make ourselves, we have to get out there. We have to make ourselves become visible. All right. Join me next week. I have another fabulous guest. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.